Shit, what's cracking, hustlers?
Yo, 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 welcome to the Hustlers HQ podcast. I'm your main man, Tumai, and rolling with me is the queen herself. What's up, y'all?
What's up, y'all? I'm Audrey, and let me tell you about me. I'm your in-house aromatherapist and essential oil coach, ready to drop some knowledge on the incredible power Mother Nature's got in her arsenal.
And a little something about me. I'm your go-to breath facilitator and coach, here to unlock that breath awareness within your own body and master those breathing beats. And in this episode number 3 on season number 1, we're going to dive deep into our dope lives. We're talking all things Audrey, all things Tumai, but in today's particular episode, we're going to be focusing on my girl Audrey. Go ahead and say hello to the mic.
Hello, people. Happy to be here.
Oh, man, it's been such a journey just being able to kick off and get started on this podcast and, just really find our flow. So kind of the next couple of episodes, we're going to be focusing on conversation with both my own history, my background, who I am and where I'm from, and also diving deep into Audrey's life. Today, we're going to focus on, a bit of her history, how she even found her way into essential oils, but also a little bit about her lifestyle, relationships, what makes her decide on natural therapy or, pharmaceuticals, etc. Maybe some recent experiences that you've had, hey, Audrey, with regards to having sick boys at home.
Oh, yes. Sick teenage boys.
Yeah, so I really wanted to sit down with you and have a chat a little bit more about your upbringing. First off, wanted to focus in on your parents actually starting off. So what was the year when your parents came in, and where did they come from? Obviously, I got a great opportunity to meet Gungung, your dad. But yeah, tell me a little bit about your roots and your ancestors and where you come from in terms of your parents. Go for it.
Yeah, sure. Look, mum came over a long time ago when she was a teenager because my granddad, her dad, used to dive for pearls in Broome, Western Australia. So she came over as a teenager, and then dad came over in his late 20s and met mum in Darwin at his sister's party and decided to go home, sort out his stuff, and then come back to Australia to propose to mum. And that was late 60s. So they're both originally from Hong Kong. And they got married in Darwin, Northern Territory in the early 1970s. And then subsequently I was born in Perth, Western Australia. Yeah.
Right. What was the setup? So did dad come here first to look for property and then mum met him? And how long did that take? Did they end up telling you at all?
Well, dad met mum at this party that his sister held in Darwin and decided that he has to come back, marry this girl. So mum was here first and my granddad was here first. And then when they got married in the 70s, I think dad just got a job with the government. So he was really starting from scratch all over again, leaving his job behind in hospitality in Hong Kong. And he did really well in hospitality, which you will find out about later on in his business. But then when he first got married with mum, he got a job with the government and he was a quarantine officer and he helped to check the boats, the ships, the airplanes, all the things that come in through Australia. And you know how tight they are in Australia when it comes to quarantine, right? So that was his job. And, with all things, I think with someone who is creative and as free-spirited as my dad, working for someone else would only last so long, I think. So, looking back now, it's only natural for him to break away, resign from a job, 9 to 5, and go find a business to create of his own. And because property was really expensive in Perth then, and they were just starting out as newlyweds, he couldn't afford to buy property or build a business in the city. So my grandma or my mum's mum was like, go to Carnarvon. of all places in Western Australia, because it was cheaper there and you could start from scratch. And we had relatives in Kalgoorlie as well back then that had restaurant experience. So my mum's family and cousins that had businesses in Kalgoorlie then came over to help Dad set up and teach him everything.
Right. So you could say that you've been in business since diapers,
Yeah.
and it's been taught to you from your parents. One question that I hadn't really asked you is who taught Dad to cook? Like, he was renowned for having the best Chinese available in Western Australia.
In that area.
See that there was a dedicated page to him, and a lot of people still 15 to 20 years later comment saying that they miss his Chinese restaurant, they miss the food. Who taught him how to cook, number one? And then number two, I want to dive deep into Carnarvon and what it was like being raised in Carnarvon. Go for it.
Look, Dad, it's really interesting. It was really heartwarming to see the messages of everyone missing his food after he passed on, and just hundreds of comments about how much they missed him, his food, his presence there, and how they've travelled all over the place and have never, all over Australia, all over the world, and they still haven't had the same kind of quality Chinese food as he cooked. I think he just knew how to cook it to their palate, right? So he learned from scratch, literally from scratch. He probably had a good skills of observation. And to this day, I've got some really old cookbooks that I found in Mum and Dad's collection that I can't bear to part with. I've kept them because they served as inspiration for their dishes. Yeah, so he learned from cookbooks. I remember going to other restaurants and he would taste everything and he would dissect in his mind, what's the ingredients in there? And then he would come home and figure it out on his own and perfect it.
Right. So I know that the place that he opened up his restaurant was obviously where you were raised.
Yeah.
Talk to me. Population. What parks or Disney parks did they have there? What was the thing that most kids got up to during the time, and how was school life during that period?
Yeah. Look, when I was growing up, I forget what the population is, but it was definitely above 15,000 people. And now apparently it's dropped to half. So, people are moving out of the town, maybe because the Chinese restaurant's not there anymore. Who knows? But it is a very small town and we call it the one-horse town, if that. And so everyone knew everybody. And you would just, it was such a quiet town. I would get up to no mischief whatsoever because my dad told me from a very young age that he had eyes all around town that knew to look out for me and my mischief. So I ended up being a really good girl and not going out, no parties, nothing, coming home really early. I did push the boundaries a little bit when I was in my, late teens. But I'm sure my friends who are tuning in or friends that I've grown up with in Carnarvon, they got up to much more fun than I did. That's for sure.
I'd love for you to tag those friends in this video when you get you get a moment after this. But the reason why is because what I love so much about you, and also equally your friends, is the closeness that you had or shared when you would be pen pals, going through some of the old letters and seeing how much you guys shared, how you communicated. I loved that small town country vibe. So that would be a really good idea. Who are you wanting to shout out? Who are the most people that you wrote to, and who was the last person that you saw from school or from that area that you grew up in?
Wow. It's been decades since I've seen someone from my, school days, but we're constantly in touch on Facebook or otherwise, and only up to really, I guess letter writing isn't that popular anymore, but we used to write all the way into our 30s, right? So that's the blessing of being brought up in that era or that age, is that writing was a thing. Writing letters, having pen pals was a thing. And I was just going through my box of letters the other week and just reminiscing. It was so beautiful to open up some of these letters from my childhood friends and reread them. And shout out to Michelle out there and Kathy. And there's a couple more, but those two really stand out in my mind simply because I've known them since primary school. And I sent, and there's two Michelles, by the way, but I sent a picture of a letter that Michelle wrote me, and it just brought her to tears because it was so beautiful. She was speaking about her mother in that letter to me, and her mother she lost at a very young age. So it was really beautiful for her to see a snippet of time in time back then, where she wrote to me about what her mum was doing and what she was up to, and she hadn't seen that or probably even remember writing that to me. So that really connects us, and it will always connect us no matter how long we've not seen each other or spoken to each other.
Yeah, wow. When I share screen here, Audrey, we've got Australia here. So Audrey was raised 900 kilometres from Perth. Most people she's got friends from Singapore and friends from Thailand. Most people will recognise Perth, right?
Yeah.
Audrey, halfway is Geraldton, and then we zoom on in, we got Carnarvon. So basically,
yeah, let's make Carnarvon famous.
Audrey was raised on the plantations.
Close to the plantations. My friends owned plantations. They're renowned for mangoes and bananas, that town. Right. And there's also an amazing seafood factory there, fresh prawns, jumbo prawns. And yeah, it's just really coastal town. So I got to grow up on the beach, by the Facine.
It has a total of 2 schools, primary school and high school include both of those 2 schools.
I think there's a couple more high schools.
Yeah, well, I remember this kind of leads me to my first funny story of Audrey, if I might share it. Oh, it's great. What I love about Carnarvon and what I love about Audrey is back then, Carnarvon was so isolated that they wouldn't really have many, a palette of males available. So what Audrey used to always tell me is, oh, wow, the Navy.
I did not say that.
The pirates are in.
There is a funny story around that. Yes.
The sailors are in. Wow, they've all docked. They're all in town. So everyone used to put their makeup on and go out to the nearest bar.
You're totally milking this story.
So I want to have Audrey share because obviously you can see the location, where it's being, where it is, and people would dock in. Share a little bit about that experience. I mean, dock in the only way that you can dock in with your boat.
No, seriously, there's a couple of like Western Australia is so remote, particularly Carnarvon. And I just remember this story when you were asking me about my childhood, and I was saying, yeah, there was one day I went to the local fair with my girlfriend, and there are these boys that hung out with us, and apparently they were sailors. I don't know what they were doing in Carnarvon, but we hung out. It was all very innocent, by the way. And then, and that's the story that Tumai likes to milk and make the most out of.
Tell us more about how when the sailors would come in, the exchange that they would have with your dad. They would exchange fish for, kegs of beer or whatever it be.
Oh, yes. You're talking about the fishermen.
Yeah, the fishermen.
Yeah,
what'd you find?
Look, the local fishermen, they loved Dad's food, and they had the most amazing catch off the western coast. Like, we have the most amazing fish out there. Nothing compares, because the water over there compared to where we are now in Melbourne is warm, and like the fish are different. They're just beautiful, amazing, and huge. And so even just me throwing in a line, no skill whatsoever, I'm going to catch something. So the fishermen would come back with nets of amazing fish, snapper, barramundi, red emperor. I haven't even said these names for decades, but I remember them so clearly. And they'd have too much in their ship, in their boat. So they would come in and they'd do a deal with Dad. They would exchange, because Dad has, a restaurant and beer and all that. So they would exchange amazing fish for cartons of beer. So,
right.
Yeah, it was a great exchange.
Great. And then the only other story that I remember as an earmark for or a focus for you was when you were telling me some of the difficult moments that you had at the restaurant. So for those of you that may not know some of Audrey's background, her and her family had a Chinese restaurant in Carnarvon, and they had a house connected to the back of it. And a lot of the times when you have kind of a lot of work, or mum and dad working at the front, taking care of orders and cooking for people and running an entire restaurant, how many people did it seat, Audrey?
At least 100. On a good night, there was at least 100 people, and sometimes I was the only one when staff call in sick.
Right. So Audrey's taking orders as well. The one scary moment or traumatic moment for Audrey was inside of the refrigerator, right?
Oh, it's really weird and funny, these laws, right? So we'd have we'd have this giant walk-in freezer, and we'd have our private food in one corner and restaurant food in the other. And of course, we have this amazing catch and stash of seafood that's been exchanged for beer. And we apparently that was a big no-no. And so you'd have these big guys from fisheries come over and inspect every now and then. And our personal stash was mixed in with the stash for the restaurant, and that was a big no-no. So they took Dad to court, and Dad spent a lot of money getting a lawyer to fight the case because he was innocent. But, they're from the city. They're from the big city, and they went up to just look through every town, make sure everyone's following the law, following regulations, fair enough, but they didn't really want to buy Dad's story, so they took him to court. But luckily he won the case because we had all the documents and all the evidence and all the witnesses to help support his case.
Right.
Yeah.
But there was also another story of you being left alone there, which always made it very difficult for you now moving forward whenever you're in fridges or when you're in dark moments. Was that fridge experience?
There was a fridge experience?
Yeah. Oh. Well, obviously it's not so traumatic
I thought you were
anymore.
talking about, no, I think... No, well, there's this big giant fridge where my sister and I would lock each other up in there. Not lock, but when you open it and put someone in there and close it, there's this suction that happens and you can't open it for like a good 20 seconds.
Right.
So we'd just totally freak out.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell me, how long did you work there until you were of age to maybe leave? Was it when you graduated in high school and started to move over to college, or what they call here in university?
Yeah. So I went away for a year to boarding school in grade 11. That was in Geraldton. And but I missed home a lot. I did not like boarding school and boarding school food and boarding school duties. So we had bangers and mash and all those delightful dishes. So I missed home. So I decided that, I'm going to do year 12 in Carnarvon public school. And then after grade 12 was when I went off to the city, went to Perth to attend university. So I went off there, but, I had to be called back home because Mum and Dad couldn't handle the business. It got really busy. And, you can't really rely too much on permanent staff a lot. It's just the nature of business. You're going to have high turnover and a lot of stress, and people just coming in and out of the city into town, and they just want a job, backpackers. So they have a job for a short amount of time, or they just grow up and move out of town, right? So I'd have to take like 6 months off uni just to come home and continue helping Mum and Dad out. But eventually I did finish my degree, and then it wasn't until after I finished my degree that I decided to move overseas. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Your sister would have had a traumatic experience when you left, right?
Yes, my poor sister Shannon, who lives in Canberra now.
But luckily the exchange was she got the experience to be able to really hone her skills in the kitchen and understand Mum and Dad's dishes, maybe more than you, right?
Yeah, she's really passionate about cooking. She loves cooking. She cooks amazing food all the time for us. But she really did really cement some of the techniques down in her mind and how Dad put together dishes, how he put together sauces. So a lot of the secrets are still in her head.
Right. So she can cook?
She can cook.
That's great. And how tall is she? Very tall?
You're funny.
She likes
What's
to
this
run
got to
everybody.
do? What's this got to do with this podcast?
And she is she works hard, everybody.
She works hard. She's tall.
No, we love Shannon. She's great. All right. So I wanted to get to the point on the age. When you left the restaurant, you left at what age? And then how old was Shannon at the time?
I think I left at about 17 or thereabouts. And Shannon is 5.5 years younger than me. So she was only 12 going on 13, right? Or something around there. Right. Still very young, still very, still looked up to me as a big sister and wanted to still spend valuable time with me. Yep. And at the time, I wasn't aware of that because I was going into another phase of my life and I was really, all about me. Me.
We should punish you for that. That's really...
I think I've been punished enough.
I'm going to hang that over you, both Shannon and I.
And, it's only recently that I've really sat down and thought through it because I've been going through that box of letters, right? I don't even know I want to cry, but I saw these letters from Shannon. And she was writing letters to me about how much she missed me. And I forgot about that. So I saw them in the letters and I haven't even told her about that. So it really makes me look back and go, was moving away really worth it? And not being able to spend those years with my parents and my sister, I lost a lot. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask, why did you move away? I remember you telling me a few stories. Was it the feeling that you were feeling pulled towards something that was maybe your passion, or was it that you were just looking for adventure? Because a lot of the time I find when we're at that age, we're not really 100% sure on what we're passionate about. So the next adventure kind of takes you, and you forget what you leave behind.
That's right.
That's what you're noticing now. So what was it that got you to move? What was the next adventure? Where did you head towards? What was going on in Audrey's life at that time?
Yeah, right. Well, I'm a blubbering mess now. But I think, at that age, after uni, I'm about 19, 20, right? And so you're just thinking about the next adventure, going out and exploring. And then I met a boy, right? So we went overseas and we traveled and we did all those things. And I think looking back on hindsight now with the wisdom that I have acquired in my 40s is that when you're at that age and you've been under so much stress for long periods of time, you don't even notice that's what's driving you to run away from home. And I didn't realize this until very recently, like maybe subconsciously I was really running away from the pressures of work, from stress, from responsibility, from expectations of what my parents might have wanted me to do. And probably from just not feeling free to do my thing and just thinking like, oh my goodness, like imagine having to take over this business and run it. There's no way I could do it. And even looking back now, even with the skills or the attitude or the mindset I have today, I honestly don't know how my mum and dad did it with the business that they had. It was so intense and so overwhelming. Yeah.
Yeah, I often think that as well about my parent. I was raised in a single household, and I think the glue that kind of, let me know what your thoughts are, the glue that has kept it together has always been traditional values. That's what a trend or a theme that I've noticed in families that really stick together, that do really well, that develop what you could almost see as generational wealth, but not just like bank account wealth, but perhaps like wealth in the mind, wealth in posture, position, in role, in self-confidence. This kind of wealth is developed only through what I've seen as traditional values, and perhaps it's a different thing. Maybe some of the traditional values of dad being having a watchful eye drove you away because you really needed that freedom. And so I've had this conversation with mum a lot of the time, is you need to be able to let go of your child and let them experience a little bit of life, but then bring them back and ground them home and then let them go, which seems like has been a thing for us, just recently inside of our household. Hey, Audrey.
Yeah. Look, a lot of the traditional values are really important, and they really help give you direction and grounding, a place to come back to. And that's why I always came back home to mum and dad. And it's the reason why I was able to look after dad in his final days. It's that filial values that we have in, especially in Asian culture, and likewise for you in the Māori culture. But what was missing from that is a sense of independence that's given to the child. And so I was your typical helicopter mother, yeah. And looking after Jordan and overshadowing him and making sure he's going to be protected and well looked after and has everything that he could possibly deserve in life. But that did come at a cost, and I realized that, and thankfully you were able to point a lot of that out and we were able to catch it quickly, because as a young man going into his adolescence and then into adulthood, there's a lot of things that we need to unlearn and undo, and to give him that space to develop his own character and personality, and confidence as a man.
What does this term mean? Helicopter mum. What is that? Is that the same as tiger mum or something?
No, helicopter, you're just hovering around a lot.
Oh,
yeah.
Overbearing.
Yes, thanks. Yes, pretty much.
Got it.
So I was the parent that was hovering when he was in kindergarten and primary school, hovering at the window or at the door, making sure he's adjusting well. And that's why as well, though, he has rarely gotten sick, right? He's rarely gotten sick.
Right.
He's got a really strong immune system. I'm always on it, like, just strengthening his immune system, being on top of things. Take your elderberry syrup, take your essential oils, take your vitamin C, do the warm baths, all those things. And that's kind of like a helicopter parent, I guess.
One of the most beautiful moments that we just recently shared with two, talking about getting sick with the boys. One was, I wasn't so sick, but I realized that I had to sit down with Geordie, my stepson, and speak to him about being sick because he didn't really get sick when he was younger, right, Mum? So
yeah.
I had to sit down with Geordie and explain to him what happens to the body and how smart the body is and what's happening with the fluing and opening up all of the channels so you can sweat. You got to make sure you breathe, make sure you go to the toilet regularly. So it was a really cool fathering moment for me. I've often been told that I would make a good dad, and you don't really know until you're really in some of those tricky moments. And then the second moment that highlighted for me was when in the post we ordered Geordie a shaver. So he just turned 15, 16. He turned 16 in March, and got him a shaver, sat him down, taught him how to shave. But in the same mailbox, he also got his learner's drivers, L plates, and his driver's license. So it's been a real experience having to learn myself how to teach and coach at a 15, 16-year-old level, and seeing the different coaching styles or parenting styles that both you and I have, Audrey. So expand how that experience has been, what you've been experiencing and witnessing on your side of that. What are the main key learnings for you?
Yeah, initially I was really resistant, right, to your style because it was really hardcore, tough, harsh.
Uh-oh.
But for a good reason. And that's why he is as independent as he is now, and why he does not complain when we don't have time for him, or we don't have time to cook dinner, or we don't have time to drive him. He's just taken on himself to go, yep, you know what, that's cool, I can do it. So it's thankfully we were able to move him into that place where he felt independent enough.
Why wasn't he able to cook and clean for himself?
Because I did everything.
Why did you do everything?
Because I don't know, you don't realize how fast they grow up. So
it's probably because you love him.
Yeah, and that too. And you're like, oh, I only got one son, and you just want to do the best and make sure it's done the best for him. And then and because I feel kind of guilty, like I'm always busy. So when I have time, I'm just going to do it for him. And I know that's the wrong way.
Right. Okay, so what were the downsides when you did everything for him and now he's starting to get to the age of 16, 17, 18?
Yeah.
What are you noticing about him that maybe perhaps would have been better opportunities for you?
What have I noticed? Well, he's a little bit slower off the mark in terms of when we... Look, he's a great child and he's a fast learner, but I have noticed, like, when we had to make him put his bed together, for example, with, or his cupboard together, like you were laughing on the side because you probably learned to do that when you're like 9, and he was trying to figure out the right tools to use.
It's like he discovered a hammer for the first time and some nails. Oh, if I hit the hammer this hard on my finger, it hurts. Okay. Yeah. All right, Audrey. All right, Jordan, let's start at step 1. Yeah. This is a hammer.
Hey, look, some adults hit their head with the hammer going the other way. So I think he's doing well.
So what are some other things that you noticed that obviously what we're talking about here is you took precious lessons, golden nuggets off him that all growing adolescents, boys are supposed to learn when you start to become a man. And so what other lessons did you notice? I'm just going to the negative. What did you notice that you set him up for?
Look, I set him up for disappointment, for frustration, for failure, because he's not comfortable with failure, and they need to be comfortable with failure so they keep going. So he does tend to give up pretty quickly, like after 1 or 2 tries, versus being more resilient and moving and figuring out things and problem solving quickly, because he's never exercised that part of him where, a lot of other kids, and maybe some of you out there, some of my friends out there might have better parenting skills where their kids are a lot more independent, and you can see 5 steps ahead, 10 steps ahead, or 5, 10 years ahead, and you're able to give them that space to learn on their own. And I think actually Australian families do that on the whole.
Right.
Their kids are pretty independent for the most part.
Right, and this is in comparison to you traveling to and seeing different children being raised in Singapore and also America. You lived in America for a long period of time.
Yes, yes, but I was mostly around Asian families, and even with my own relatives, family members, I can see how the parenting is so different in Asia compared to Australia.
Right.
And for good reason too, because some of those areas are a lot more congested, a lot more dense. There's a lot more danger. There's a lot more fear around kidnapping and all that sort of stuff. So parents tend to be a little bit more, tight-fisted around their child and being really careful.
Yeah, we're not too careful here in Australia. What's the quote that we've got here?
What's that?
That's not a knife.
This is a knife.
Yeah. It's just
Yeah.
like a lot of people that look at Australia, they think, oh my gosh, like danger. There's so many wild animals and poisonous animals, but I've hardly seen any of them except
That's
for maybe
funny.
one in the last 10 years.
Yeah. I know a lot of Americans don't even want to travel here because they said it's the most dangerous country on the planet when it comes to dangerous animals and insects and spiders. But oddly enough, for those of you listening that have never been here, it's a rare occasion we come across anything scary or dangerous, other than the occasional redback spider, which you just stomp on. Sorry,
Sorry, spider.
spider, but it has to be done.
Right. Okay. So we're talking about some of the lessons that you took off Jordan, and then in turn, what's happened is he has been underprepared for what life has to offer. The beauty in life is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Also, equally the challenges. And so we've covered some things. What about in the house? What about in the cleaning? What about in the bedroom? What
it's
other
really
things
funny.
have you noticed?
Look, I used to do all that, and I used to maybe up to recently, we got Geordie more involved in housework, obviously, just because to take the load off and for him to learn the skills, and how important it is to take pride in your own room and not just your own room, in the environment that your family lives in, to be a team player is what I learned. So it's not just about you do your part, you do your room. It's the lesson they learn from working in a team, which is really important because he needs to take that skill to the workplace, right? Or even if he's going to run his own business, he needs to have teamwork skills. And that's something I did not equip him with because I did everything for him, or 90% of the things for him. And I'm sure a lot of you mothers out there can relate to this. Come on, fess up. I'm not the only one.
Okay, so you love him so much that you took all the lessons off him. Now coming full circle around, and now that you and I are both sitting down and having these sort of deeper conversations about equipping him with life skills, what are some of the beautiful lessons that you're seeing? What are the golden nuggets that you're able to operate from? What are you learning?
It is beautiful. From him learning to work as a team, and for him observing how we work in the family, Tumai, you and me, and how you ask me questions like, Audrey, what do you need help with? Audrey, can I help you here? I know you do that naturally, but you also do that intentionally for him to observe. So naturally now he's a lot better at asking or helping. Or even like when we came home today and we saw there were 3 baked potatoes in the oven, not 1, right? So he took the effort and the initiative to put 3 baked potatoes in without even asking us. Simple things like that, where he has us in mind as well, is what's really, really heartwarming. Yeah.
And that leaves us to funny moment number 3, everybody.
Oh,
or
we're up
number
to
2.
three?
Number 2. So I'll come to the main camera.
Boy.
A while back, it was a beautiful and funny moment, but a while back with Audrey when it comes to funny moments. So we're up to funny moment number 2. Funny moment number 2 is when Audrey sat down and started crying in front of me when she had this beautiful breakfast meal. And the reason why she started crying is because she said in tears, Geordie's never made me breakfast. What did you do? Oh, it's so beautiful. It was funny to me, but it was surprising to Audrey and maybe a little bit of a shock, but probably very beautiful, right, Audrey?
Yeah, it's all in the simple things. Like now, it's the little things that I appreciate And it was just nothing. He just did not have the capacity or did not have the awareness to do that. And I know a lot of you moms out there are probably thinking, oh, I wish my kid would make me breakfast. I wish my kid would make me dinner. You know, there is hope. There's actually a way. There's a method. And that's the beauty of having your perspective, Timai. Even though, you know, I said to you in anger or frustration, you don't know what it's like to be a parent. You don't know what it's like. And that was me being defensive in one moment, being stressed and frustrated.
Yeah, that
But
hurt me, actually.
I know it hurts you.
If that's possible to do, hurt me.
And that was because I was getting defensive, right? I thought you didn't understand where I was coming from. But now looking back, I think like, wow, you bring such an interesting perspective to this family dynamics, a very different perspective that parents don't normally have. It's a fresh perspective that you bring in. And you're able to move and touch and impact him in a way that a lot of us parents are not able to because we're so blind to our methods. We're so stuck in our ways of doing things, and we are not able to change our paradigm or change our ways of doing things. So I think it's great having someone outside of the usual family dynamics come in and give a fresh perspective on things. Always be open, people. Always be open to that perspective. It'll always bring something new. Yeah.
And that brings me to the same funny moment just yesterday or maybe the day before. Hey, Audrey, Jordan's sick on the couch.
He's going to love you for this.
See?
I can't move. Oh, that was so funny.
Mum. And Audrey comes in and goes, can you make yourself breakfast? You got to make yourself breakfast. I'm busy. We've got a lot of work. I'm just going to be busy all day. I'm going to be working all day. And then we've got our friends coming over tonight. I can, but I don't want to. And then Audrey rolling over laughing.
I was laughing so hard.
Yeah. Don't get angry, Mum. I can do it, but I don't want. Can't you just do it?
Yes.
And then it's like, you sit down. No, Jordan, you need to learn. I've done it for you for 2 or 3 days. I've been supporting you. Now you need to learn how to support yourself a little bit. And so that's been a really phenomenal lesson for you, Audrey.
Yeah, in the past, I would have totally caved. I would have totally made him breakfast because he got that pitiful look to him. He's lying on the couch.
Yeah, because you're a caver.
I cave in. And this time, because you've been helping me understand the importance of, you know, making, not being overbearing and not jumping in to save him, I'm getting more comfortable with that. And so this time it was actually funny because I could see the trick he was playing on me. He was totally trying to wrap me around his little finger, right? And he knew it worked in the past. But you happened to walk out and I was just looking at you and rolling over laughing because I said, can you do it? He goes, yeah, I can do it. I can. Then why can't you do it today? Oh, it's just easier if you do it. You're there. I just couldn't stop laughing. And so, but I stood firm and lo and behold, he got up from the couch, from the warm biomat. He got it to the kitchen and he made himself breakfast. And that was a great learning experience for all of us.
Yeah, just that one little step, that one little bit extra. But I can totally see where the cave-in can happen. Very funny, the languaging and the way that they learn how to manipulate mum to...
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying, and also a great lesson or takeaway, Audrey, is it's like not to always be tough. It's funny, my mum's still teaching me lessons, right? Way after she stopped parenting, right? It's like what I noticed about mum was that it was kind of like those leashes that you buy a dog and they sling out and they go all the way out and then it pulls the dog back in.
Recoils.
Yeah, recoils back in. It's kind of like that. Like there's some beautiful moments where you can serve your son or serve anybody, but then there's some moments where you need to make sure that you don't take the lesson off them. So just getting the rhythm and the pacing of that and not overdoing any one way. Yeah,
you're really good with that because that took me some time to get used to. Like I couldn't really decide when was a good time to come in and help him and when was a good time to step back. And I remember looking at you and going, is now a good time? And you're like, now's a good time. And I wasn't sure. So now I kind of have a bit of a more of a gut feeling with it now. And yeah, thank you for that.
Nice one, Audrey. So We're going to fast forward or rewind back to Audrey traveling and running away from Gung Gung Dad.
Dad.
And then she ended up running back into Gung Gung Dad again, but just in a different life form. No matter what, it's really funny. No matter what you're running away from, you end up creating the situation all over again and running back into the exact same situation where you could learn from. Or like, say, for example, Gung Gung controlling, right?
We call him Gung Gung because that means grandfather to Jordan.
Your granddad,
My dad.
your dad controlling and maybe not giving freedom. And then you run into another scenario which has some perceived freedom, some perceived temporary relaxed environment, yet you actually run into the same situation where things start to get a little tighter and it doesn't feel free at all, right, Audrey?
Yeah, I don't think this fits into the funny moment.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I want to go back into your life.
Yeah.
Where did you travel to once you did the running away? Where was the first location?
Singapore.
Singapore was first?
Yeah, it was.
Okay. How long did
well,
you
meaning
stay?
like, I met Jordan's dad in Perth, and then we moved to Singapore, and then subsequently got married. So, running, that's what happened basically. But it's interesting you said that, because when you're running away from constraints and you think you're getting freedom, you first have to know what's hidden, what is the blind spots that you have, and becoming more aware of what you're running away from, because I didn't even know what I was running away from, right? Mm-hmm. It's only now in an adulthood that I realized I must have been running away from dad and mum and responsibility. And so when you don't identify the core issue, then it's only going to happen again, because that's the pattern you're used to.
Great.
Right?
Okay. Yeah. Got it. So Singapore for how many years roughly?
On and off, because we traveled in and out of the country to and from the US. So about 12 years in Singapore in total.
In total. And you, in between that time, you also lived in America?
Yeah.
Whereabouts?
Texas for about 8 years total.
Tell me about the life in Texas. Yeah. Any dogs? What did you experience? Was it scary with the gun laws over there?
What guns?
What are the folks like?
I saw not a single gun in 8 years, interestingly enough.
Got it. So they got concealed carry.
Yes. Yeah?
Okay.
So, pretty vast, wide land over there, and people were amazing and warm. I love Texas. We definitely have to go back there. Mm-hmm. Just a lot of freedoms. Freedom to speak, freedom to just live your life out, and really diverse cultures. Mm-hmm. So they had a lot. It's close to the border of Mexico. There's a lot of Spanish-speaking people, and there's a lot of Asians there. Huge migration, Vietnamese, Indian, because there's different industries, tech industries there as well. And just what you expect. It's very similar to Australia in many ways, but obviously with everything being bigger there. Big hats, big boots, big hair.
Right. So the cowboys are really cowboys over there.
Yes. Depends what area you're going to. But just a bustling metropolitan city on the whole in Dallas.
Right. So if you had to pick somewhere to live in the world, where would you pick? Would you re-pick that Texas? Because you've mentioned that you love living in Texas. Or would it be somewhere else to experience?
I would definitely have no qualms going back to Texas. It's in a great location. It's pretty central in America, and then you can just kind of fly out from there. But I definitely want to choose something different for a change.
Okay.
Maybe I wanted to say Washington side, Seattle side is really beautiful, Spokane, Washington. Or even Europe, like Italy would be amazing,
Right.
It's beautiful over there. We'd love to go explore those areas with you.
Okay, cool. So you're very well travelled, from what I understand, and I love looking through your book, your scrapbooking of all the little places that you've travelled to. Give me your top 3 locations that you've travelled to, and then I can go into your next funny story. Funny story number 3 about Audrey. So what's your top 3?
I have to say Venice was absolutely amazing and magical and beautiful. Mm-hmm. Probably have to say Seattle. I just love Seattle. I have warm memories of that place and friends there.
Yeah. Say hello to your best friends over there.
Yeah. Do I have to name them all?
Yeah, go ahead and shout them out.
I'm shouting out Adeline. I'm shouting out Davina. I'm shouting out Scott. There's a bunch there. Oh, and our new friend Anthony over there. That's pretty awesome. Mm-hmm. And then the third place would have to be Paris. I know you might not agree with Paris, but I loved Paris. It was a girly trip, so I remember Paris well, being a girly trip.
Ooh la la.
Ooh la la.
Okay. So you got Paris, Seattle, and what was the other one?
Venice.
Venice. Okay, got it. So funny story number 3 of Audrey. You know when you have to book in an Airbnb? You read through the description and then you go through and find out exactly what you're booking so that you can stay in a nice, comfortable place while you're traveling, right? That is the normal. Audrey seemingly found out another way to book in an entirely new service by accident. A story that we had. Now, where did you travel to?
It was San Francisco. So
Right.
I was going for work, and normally I go to Salt Lake City, right, and convention and all that, and meeting up with hundreds of friends there. But I like to make a bit of a side trip because you're going to travel 18, 20, if not actually more than that with layovers, more than 24 hours, just to get to the United States. You're going to do a side trip. So I decided to do a side trip to San Francisco, even though I've been there like 6 times. And I booked an Airbnb, and it looked pretty nice and clean online, right? With that wide angle lens. Shall I go on?
Yes, please. What did you
So
find? So you checked in.
I checked in and I realized it was an Airbnb.
What happened? What was the scene?
It was a curtain that divided my room from the guy that was renting it to me. And he was a student at the university there. He was renting his part of the room to me with just a curtain and a kitchenette.
So he basically uploaded the photos into
Of the whole
Airbnb
place.
of the whole place, and it looked nice. Oh, you have your own
Little-
kitchenette and your own bathroom and your own bed.
Yeah.
And then when Audrey rocked up to check in, he says to her, "Oh, it's shared accommodation,
yeah,
right?
it's
You know
shared.
that I'm living here too."
But he's hardly in, he says. He only comes in at night after studying, and, I won't disturb you. And he had a good, track record. He wasn't some weirdo, so I felt safe. And he was an overseas student. But I went through with it, and it was one of those shared toilets with all the other students.
Right. So Audrey tucks herself into bed and she puts the curtain around the bedroom.
Yes, thank you, Tumai, for telling the world.
And we discovered that Audrey likes to book in Airbnbs.
Yes,
Air
that's
beds
it.
and curtains.
Thanks.
So San Francisco. Okay. And now, so come full circle. Now you find yourself back in Australia. 20 plus years have passed since you being in your past relationship and your marriage. And then somehow you're back in Australia in 2018, 17, 18. Okay.
Yeah.
17. Right. What got you to come back to Australia now?
Yeah, look, it was a lot to do with my ex and how he thought it was a good idea for whatever the reason. And I agreed. I'm like, okay, that's cool. It was a bit of a shock because it meant that he was going to quit his job and just throw all his eggs in one basket and hope for the best. And that would be me just, continuing my business. But also it was a good thing. It turned out to be a good thing because I got to spend more time with Dad. So we went through a huge process where we moved Dad from Western Australia. By then he was living in Mandurah, south of Perth, and we sold his house prior to moved him over with us. And also we thought, well, being the pressure cooker that Singapore is and how stressful it is for kids there with school, it would be a great thing for Geordie to grow up in Australia and to live a somewhat less stressful life, going to school. So that was the whole idea. It wasn't really thought through properly. We didn't really discuss it as family properly. It was just more of like a one-man decision, a one-person decision. And I was just like, oh, okay, cool. That's huge. All right, let's do that. And I've always trusted the judgment that's made. Being a good wife, you go follow along. And that's how we ended up here. So, for its worth, there were good things that came out of it. There were bad things that came out of it, as with all things in life. You just have to roll your dices, Yeah.
Right. I'm trying to think of the next funny moment of you touching down in Australia or whether it was for your rabbits or whether
Oh,
it's
boy. I had
Guinea or whether it's
there was more
something
recent funny things that happened, actually.
Okay, tell me.
Where we had a lot of fun first moments sharing things together, and how I had a lot of first surfing moment and a first trying to dive moment. And Tumai was helping me teach me to dive in the ocean, right? To my, which is I understand and I believe is a very important skill to have because, you know, who doesn't want to dive for shells, for lobsters, for abalone,
Yeah.
you know, for whatever reason.
What I love about, well, what originally attracted me to Audrey was her bubbly character and her traditional values. It's something that I've always looked for. They're very hard to find these days, traditional values in women. So here's a quick little tip. You got to look at culture. And what I found with Audrey's bubbly nature is it also included being bubbly in the ocean. So when Audrey tries to dive and snorkel, she just ends up face planting, and she keeps saying that she's trying to dive, and she keeps face planting in the water, and nothing ends up happening. And I'm like, well, you got to face plant, tuck, and then kick your feet and go down. It just
I have positive buoyancy. It's called positivity, positive buoyancy, and I still can't really dive to this day. So if anyone out there has some really good tips for me, I'm all ears. But I think you had a really good laugh, and so did our friends. It's just something I haven't perfected yet. Yeah.
At least we know if I was on Titanic, I can go on the thing and then I won't drown. It won't be that Jack moment. Jack, don't leave me.
I know.
I won't be sinking because you can just
grab onto me. Just grab onto me. Right. That's how I learned backstroke, by the way. I just floated and I'm like, okay, I'm going to move my arms now.
Yeah.
And that's how I
right.
I think that's how you learn backstroke. Isn't that the way?
Let's move on to a topic that maybe you have a little bit more expertise on, not necessarily sport or athleticism, Audrey.
No, that's not where I shine.
But I wanted to ask you about business, especially about your previous business in jewelry and jewelry making. Where did you take a course? How did you learn about all the different methods? Where did that all start, and how did that move into number 23? I haven't really asked you.
Number 23, yeah. I still love making jewelry. I still love crafting jewelry, and it's something I want to go back to eventually when I free up my time with all the systems and automation that we're implementing. But I started just making my own stuff because when I was a stay-at-home mom, I would love jewelry, as many women do, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to try and make my own. I can make that. So it just started there, and I just started buying supplies and looking for courses online. Eventually, that hobby became a bit more serious, and I love vintage jewelry as well. So I bought a lot of vintage jewelry on my trips overseas at flea markets, at antique malls and all that, and I had all this in my stash. And when I went back to Singapore for a few years, I decided to sign up to a really cool school there called JDMIS, Jewelry Design School, and beautiful Tanya there. She has amazing classes there if anyone in Singapore wants to learn. But that's where I learned my metalsmithing and pearl knotting and gemology and jewelry design. And it was there that I developed the proper skills to put together pieces, very, very unique pieces, and solder them together.
How long were classes? Like, was it a month-to-month thing, or did it go for like a 12 months or something along those lines?
They're very short classes because there's a lot of different areas you can learn in jewelry design. So each class might be a few months long, and you would go every week, and you just finish a certificate on that. And then, of course, you can continue to upgrade your skills and get more complex. It's
definitely something that I'd love to go back to actually with you. We'll learn a little bit about that.
Dude, we have to go to Mexico.
You and I both love working with our hands. Myself with my own tools. I like to work with timber and wood, something a little bit more pliable. I don't like
more manly.
I guess so. But I would love to see you work with a lot more like gold and maybe silversmithing.
Yeah, silversmithing for sure. It's really good to have that skill because then you know what's possible when it comes to designing, because you know how there's a lot of designers that make stuff and then they give it to the person to fabricate and they're like, we can't do that. So it's good to have the skill, but eventually you want to be able to then design your own and then have a team of silversmiths create that for you and launch it into the market. So that's my plan. That would be ideal. Yeah, for sure.
Nice one. Okay, and then so fast forward into number 23. I'm still trying to think of the fifth funny moment of you as we continue on. Take us through number 3, the conception 23? Of it and what you were doing.
Yeah, I was just making a lot of beautiful pieces, unique, bespoke pieces for my customers. It started with friends at first, and they started getting me to consign pieces for them that were one-off. And then I would have, launch parties or attend events where we would do fashion shows, and I would supply the pieces for the fashion show. And that's how I kind of got my word out, or I'd have pieces in my friends' shops for sale. And then just word just spread. So that was really a lot of fun to do. It was it wasn't a serious business because I enjoyed the creative process of it. And when you're running a business like that, then it gets really, serious, the back end, the admin, the stuff that's really boring and not so fun. So eventually I kind of parked it aside and go, you know what, this isn't quite working out. It's not getting fun anymore. It's coming a little mundane with the admin work. So I put that aside and just kind of fell into the next phase of life, which was discovering, as everyone knows, aromatherapy and essential oils. So yeah, that's kind of the transition.
Nice one. And so the last moment to share, last little funny moment is probably a personal funny moment. Multiple funny moments that I enjoy with Audrey is actually just watching her own expressions to things. I love it when she dresses in her matching tracksuits and she comes out looking like an eggplant.
Thanks.
I also love it when she gets a little embarrassed and then she has to run all the way from one side of the room to the other side of the room to zoom in right on me and hide underneath me. Very funny caricature. It's almost like this cartoon character that I'm experiencing every single day.
Oh, I've learned so much being around you because I'm actually a lot more conscious now, not conscious in a bad way, but more aware of my expressions, my micro expressions, because nothing escapes you. Oh,
show us that one.
My waddle. My waddle.
Your little wobble.
When I'm happy, I waddle. And I didn't even know it until you pointed it out. You're like, oh, there goes the waddle again. So whenever I have my favorite kind of like egg on toast or avo on toast or something that I really enjoy in life, I do a waddle. It's a penguin waddle. Thanks, Tumai, for pointing that out. That's my trademark secret.
Well, it's been so good to have this sort of, it almost seems like a catch up with you and a review over maybe some of the parts that I've missed and not asked questions on. We have these chats all the time. Hey, Audrey. And,
every day, every night, we're just going over and sharing moments of our past with each other. So thank you so much.
Especially 4 a.m. when I naturally wake up and I start poking her and saying, hey, are you awake yet? Want to have a chat? What did you dream about?
And then at 5 a.m. you go, I'm going to wake you in half an hour, okay? All right.
Oh, thank you so much, everybody. We really enjoyed your presence. And until next episode,